You ever get a bill for $47,000 on a piece of land that's been in your family for nearly a century? No. Well, let me tell you, it'll put a dent in your morning coffee. That's what happened to me. Owen Caldwell, retired land surveyor, certified old crank, and apparently public enemy number one to a certain HOA president named Vivian Thorne. She came strutting up my porch one day, clipboard in hand, a face so tight you'd think smiling was illegal, and announced I owed decades of back dues. "Your little cabin's been freeloading off our community since day one, Mr. Caldwell," she said, waving some papers around like they'd turn into handcuffs. "Pay up or we foreclose. 30 days. I just stood there on my granddad's porch, boards creaking under both our feet, thinking, "Lady, you picked the wrong retiree." She wanted me to panic. I gave her a grin instead. Because what she didn't know is, I collect old property deeds the way some folks collect baseball cards. "Vivian, you want to see the 1887 deed that predates your HOA by about 100 years?" I said. The look on her face, priceless. Her smirk cracked like old paint. So let me tell you how a quiet retirement turned into a backyard brawl for the ages. Before Vivian declared war, my life was simple. I'm 52, living in the hunting cabin my granddad built in the 1920s, 2.5 acres outside Millbrook Falls, Oregon. Every day's the same. Fresh coffee brewing on the wood stove, cedar smoke curling up into the beams, my old golden retriever Ranger stretched out on the porch. This cabin? It's nothing fancy, solid logs, a stone fireplace, floors that groan in all the familiar spots. I spent 3 years of retirement restoring vintage surveying gear and keeping the land just how the Caldwells always did. Creek babbling at the border, wind whispering through the pines, peaceful as it gets. That was until Brookstone Meadows appeared in '99. Some hotshot developer bought the farmland next door, slapped up 200 beige boxes, 3 shades of boring, all with manicured lawns and zero personality. They're close enough that I can hear their leaf blowers every Saturday morning. Far enough that I figured we'd coexist without trouble. Enter Vivian Thorne, neighborhood tyrant. Picture this, late 50s, former realtor, now HOA president for what feels like a lifetime. Drives a white BMW with Hine vanity plates, carries her clipboard like nuclear launch codes. I've seen her measure grass with a ruler, issue fines for mailbox colors, even made one family repaint their whole house for being too warm beige. But her sights, from day one, were set on my cabin. Every time a delivery truck rolled up, FedEx, groceries, propane, Vivian was there, grilling the drivers, accusing them of disrupting the peaceful character of the neighborhood. Never seemed to mind those same trucks at her friends' houses. Message was clear. My place was an eyesore, dragging down property values, and Vivian wanted it gone. Her first shot was an anonymous complaint to county code enforcement. Unsightly structure, zoning violations. $3,000 in lawyer fees later, I proved what I already knew. My property had a grandfathered exemption, legal as Sunday church. Vivian just smiled. "We'll find another way to clean up this neighborhood." And find a way she did. Suddenly my chainsaw was excessively loud. At 2 p.m., mind you. Parking enforcement ticketed my guests. At HOA meetings, she spread rumors that property values were suffering thanks to substandard structures. She even tried to pit my neighbors against me with her subtle jabs, questioning if I could afford proper hospitality, when Mrs. Washington brought me cookies, accusing my old buddy Tommy of working without a permit. Walking my property one night, I caught the whiff of cigarette smoke, Vivian lurking at the boundary, snapping pictures of violations. Lady made surveillance a hobby. Here's the kicker, I'm a retired land surveyor. My hobby? Collecting old property records, deeds, railroad grants, timber contracts, you name it. I'd spent years piecing together my family's history, original survey markers, environmental designations, boxes full of documents dating back to Oregon's territorial days. Boring to most people, my idea of detective work. Never thought that collection would become my best weapon. But then came the certified letter, a legal missile from Vivian's new best friends, Peton and Associates, demanding $47,000 for 25 years of unpaid HOA dues and penalties. They claimed some buried document included my property in the original boundaries. They threatened liens, foreclosure, the whole scare tactic playbook. That's when I realized Vivian wasn't just a busybody. She was betting that a lone retiree couldn't fight back. Time for a little detective work. I drove to the county courthouse, the familiar smell of old paper and floor cleaner bringing me right back to my surveyor days. Dolores Henning, county clerk since the Carter administration, rolled out 3 boxes of Brookstone documents. "Honey," she said, adjusting her Coke bottle glasses, "that HOA's more trouble than a raccoon in a trash bin." We pored over the files under flickering fluorescent lights, Dolores whispering courthouse gossip about developers who thought they could rewrite property law. That's when I found it, a 1999 environmental impact study, buried in the mess. The HOA wanted to include all properties within 500 feet, but there was a clause requiring buffer zones for wetland access. My cabin? Explicitly excluded to protect the creek along my border. Dolores dug up a dusty file, an old letter from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, forbidding HOA authority over my land due to federal wetland protection. That little creek? Not just pretty legally protected habitat under the Clean Water Act. Twist of fate, Vivian's war on my cabin was about to violate federal law. I drove home, windows down, breathing in pine and justice. Called Vivian up, told her, "Interesting legal theory. How's your HOA planning to claim authority over federally protected wetlands?" Silence on the other end. "I don't know what you're talking about," she tried. "Really? Because I have a DQ letter that says otherwise." More silence. I could practically hear her gripping that clipboard. "Here's the thing. Never trust an HOA's interpretation of your property lines. Always check the public records." That night, I lined up Peton's threats next to my environmental exclusion docs, proof positive they hadn't done their homework. The bourbon tasted extra sweet, knowing they'd just handed me evidence of legal malpractice. 3 days later, Vivian fired back. Emergency HOA meeting, her attempt at a show trial, with neighbors crammed into the community center, photos of my cabin plastered up like mugshots. She called me a parasite, freeloading off community resources. But her big mistake? Distributing copies of Peton's letter as proof, never suspecting the holes in her story. I wasn't at that circus, but Mrs. Washington called me after. "Honey, that woman painted you like a criminal." But something was off. See, while Vivian whipped up the pitchfork mob, I was busy digging through every deed, map, and insurance survey my family ever filed. That's when I found a real gem, a 1999 survey required by Brookstone's own insurance company, specifically excluding my property from HOA coverage. And guess who'd signed that exclusion at the courthouse? Vivian herself. Called up my insurance guy Tommy. He didn't mince words. "Owen, if an HOA tries to include excluded property, that's insurance fraud. They'll get federal marshals involved." That was the second twist. Vivian wasn't just overstepping. She was about to drag her whole community into criminal hot water. But she didn't quit. Next came the code enforcement complaint, accusing me of running an illegal business from my cabin. Vintage survey gear restoration, apparently, was commercial activity. But Dave, the inspector, was an old surveyor buddy. "Your property's cleaner than half these garages. No violation." Strike one against Vivian's credibility. Undeterred, she launched a social media smear campaign. Photos of my cabin, accusations of environmental hazards, all whipped up into a digital mob. But here's where karma started keeping score. I'd been recording every threat, every trespass, every call, perfectly legal in Oregon. Mrs. Washington called again, voice shaking. "She's retaliating against anyone who supports you." The whole neighborhood was on edge. I kept digging and stumbled on Vivian's County Planning Commission application, where she claimed proven community leadership. All this harassment was just a line item on her political resume. But the real bombshell came from Tommy. Their insurance company was investigating boundary fraud. Multiple attempts to include excluded properties, systematic fraud, not a clerical mistake. One night, Janet Morse, the HOA treasurer, showed up at my place, cigarette shaking in her hand. "Owen," she whispered, "Vivian forced this legal action. Most of us had no idea about the environmental laws. If this goes to court, we're personally liable." Her tail lights disappeared into the trees, but the message was clear. The board was turning on their president. That Thursday, Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Oregon State Archives called. She'd found documentation in federal records. My land was forever protected, conservation easement, forever wild status. HOA authority here was a federal crime, $25,000 a day in fines. And the EPA was tracking similar HOA cases across 3 states. I watched Vivian measuring mailbox heights across the road, blissfully unaware federal marshals were circling. I let her keep digging her hole. She sent more threats, even hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, tried to levy a $1,000 assessment on every homeowner to fund her legal war. Janet revealed Vivian tried to bribe her for support, then threatened her when she refused. That was felony territory, plain and simple. Then came the real fireworks. EPA Regional Director Sandra Martinez called. "We've received multiple reports of Clean Water Act violations involving your HOA." The feds were involved now. Vivian's campaign had officially gone nuclear. Friday, Peton and Associates filed a quiet title action, claiming adverse possession of my property. They posted a foreclosure notice right on my front door. That would have been funny if it wasn't so criminally stupid. Adverse possession requires 10 years of open, hostile use. My family had been here since the 1920s, uninterrupted. Their own records showed they'd only contacted me this year. That afternoon, Channel 7 News rolled up, Vivian's last stand. She went on TV, painted me as a tax-dodging criminal, made up services the HOA never provided. Reporter Amanda Lopez asked for my side. "I've got deeds from 1887, 1999 environmental studies, and EPA letters proving my property's protected." Amanda's eyes lit up. Federal crimes, not a neighbor dispute. That evening, Tommy called. The HOA's insurance was canceled, effective immediately. Fraud, boundary misrepresentation, environmental law violations. The whole neighborhood left high and dry. Vivian's supporters started abandoning ship. Janet organized a secret meeting, 47 signatures demanding Vivian's resignation in 6 hours. Monday's final showdown packed the community center. Vivian strutted in, confident as ever, briefcase and all. Her PowerPoint presentation was a masterpiece of fiction, charts, photos, and a demand to foreclose on my property. Amanda Lopez asked the one question Vivian didn't want to hear. "What's your response to allegations this property's federally protected?" Vivian doubled down. "False, our lawyers checked." I stepped forward, dropped the 1887 deed on the camera. Dr. Vasquez presented the federal studies. Tommy read the insurance exclusion with Vivian's signature. The crowd erupted. Sandra Martinez stood, flashing her federal badge. "This is a notice of federal investigation into systematic environmental law violations." Vivian's world collapsed in real time. Janet moved to drop all legal action against me and remove Vivian as president. The vote passed in a landslide. Vivian tried to sneak out, but her BMW wouldn't start. Had to catch a ride home with the deputy serving her papers. Cameras rolling the whole time. Justice felt like a lungful of mountain air after a thunderstorm. Sharp, clean, the world reset. 6 months later, Brookstone Meadows is an actual community. Elena Rodriguez, new president, issued a public apology, reimbursed my legal fees, and published our property's history in the newsletter. I started giving tours with Rivers and Ridges Conservation, partnered with the Historical Society to teach kids about environmental law and property rights. Started a legal defense fund for rural homeowners, too, because if this could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. Vivian? Lost her county commission bid, faced fraud charges, sold her BMW to cover legal bills. Last I heard, she's renting downtown, no HOA in sight. And here's the moral, for what it's worth. Always check the facts before you let anyone bully you out of your rights. Federal law trumps local power trips every single time. All you need is patience, the right paperwork, and the nerve to say not today. My land's still mine, the creek still babbles, and justice, slow as it may be, has a way of coming around. But let me ask you, what would you have done in my shoes? Ever tangled with an overzealous HOA, or a petty tyrant with a clipboard? Drop your stories in the comments. Tell me what you think about justice, rights, and standing your ground. And hey, if you know someone fighting a battle like mine, share this story. Remind them, your home is your castle, and even David can bring down Goliath, if you're stubborn enough to stand your ground.